If you think about the two careers, business and education, I think my calling has really been combining those two. The serendipity was that I was born at a time when India was opening up and new things were happening, both in business and in education.
If we talk about education, what really should be the fundamental values of a true educational institution? Is it just about degrees? Is it about the knowledge?
Transformation of human beings is what formal education does. We in India were very evolved in education. The whole system of education that started with Takshashila University and then went on to Vikramshila, Nalanda and so on. At higher education, we were at the forefront of the world. The whole Gurukul system that existed in the old days, all of these emphasized holistic education.
What were your learnings as you were building the ISB?
Especially in the ISB's case,
What would be the three pivotal points which they have to take home from the entire podcast?
the anchor point, the curiosity, and
Hello, this is Dr. Sweta Adatia and welcome at another episode of Being Limitless at the Limitless Brain Lab. Today, I have someone extremely special, very, very special in the field of education who has created magic. An education alchemist, Mr. Dr. Pramath Raj Sinha. He's an entrepreneur, he's an academic administrator, a philanthropist, and educationist who is currently serving at the board of trustees of Ashoka University. He is also the founding dean of Indian School of Business, Hyderabad. I cannot have words to express my gratitude and gratefulness for him to accept this episode because this is so important. I am an extreme fan, as you guys have been with my channel, of raising a limitless generation. A limitless generation is only possible when we, as educators, parents, and the teachers all across take up one pledge of building the right brains. As a neurologist and being with the Journey in Limitless Brain Lab, these are the brains who are immortal brains. These are the brains who have made it in life. And let us hear from the man himself who has turned education into something really special and whose vision and mission has been over the years spreading across India. I am extremely delighted to meet him personally today and have his brain. We will be talking about his brain a little later in the journey, but let's talk to him at the episode. Thank you so much, Dr. Pramath, for being here.
thank you, Shweta, for having me. I think some of the things you said about me feel unreal. So you must be talking about somebody else.
Oh wow, I like that. This is the humbleness of people.
I haven't been called alchemist, magician, and all of these things. So I'll take it. But
Thank you. You deserve it. Please tell us about your journey right from the start, Dr. Pramath.
so call me Pramath. I grew up in Patna and went to school there. I was lucky enough to be born in a very stable home in the sense that my parents had built a home and I grew up there. That home still remains, so I didn't move around too much. Went to the same school for the full K-12 education. From there, I went to one of the IITs to study in Kanpur for 4 years and then went off to the US for my PhD. Worked there, came back to India, and have been in India since 1997. So that's kind of been the career journey. But yes, I've been fortunate enough to be in India at a time when things really opened up in 1991. So my initial career rode that tide of building successful careers in business and the corporate world. Along the same time came the opportunity to build new educational institutions, which I've been doing for the last 25 years.
So, between the corporate and the educational institutions, what would be your calling? Because I think you mentioned career. So, I feel personally that career, job, and calling, once a person has the calling, that's where the magic comes out. So, was that your calling, and how did you serendipitously land up into that, or what's been the story?
Yeah, you could say that it has been what would be a mission, purpose, calling. I'm not sure it is my calling ultimately. I think calling keeps changing through your life. At least the last decade or so, calling has been about higher education. It did happen serendipitously, but if you think about the two careers, business and education, I think my calling has really been combining those two.
Beautiful.
Because a lot of people in academia don't know the other side, and there's a big divide between the two. I was lucky enough to be trained to be an academic, became an academic, was not successful, went to business, and then came back to academic in a different avatar.
Yeah.
Not as a scholar and a teacher, but more as an administrator and an entrepreneur.
Right.
And I think that was a very unique journey because it allowed me to bring the best of the two worlds together. It also allowed me to appreciate the worst of the two worlds and know what not to do.
Yeah. Right.
And yes, of course, the serendipity was that I was born at a time when India was opening up and new things were happening, both in business and in education.
Lovely.
We have been a very unique country in the last 25 years or so, where private universities have been set up from scratch. There are no other examples today of countries, maybe a little bit in South America and now starting in Africa. But if you look at most other markets, including China, where there's been a large expansion in both business and education as well, private education has not come in there. It's largely been government led.
And I see that India is just now beginning. In fact, another era, golden era of education is about to start with the national education policy and so many changes which are coming in the infrastructure in the Indian ecosystem as well, right? So if we talk about education, so all the parents who are listening and the educationists, what really should be the fundamental values of a true educational institution? Is it just about degrees? Is it about the knowledge? Or is it about the transformation of a kid that we are looking at? How do you look at education?
Well, you've already answered the question. I think the transformation of human beings is what formal education does. All of us get educated. I think even the person who doesn't go to school or college is in their own way educated. But I think when we talk about education, as you are referring to, it's the much more deliberate, systematic, sustainable way of transforming a human being. And to that extent, we are failing our current generations. We in India were very evolved in education, always. And if you go back to the ancient examples and all through about 1,000 years ago, the whole system of education that started with Takshashila University and then went on to Vikramshila, Nalanda, and so on. At higher education, we were at the forefront of the world. I don't know much about school education, but the whole Gurukul system that existed in the old days, all of these emphasized holistic education. So you learned what you did outside of the formal system, which you learned at home or by just living in society and partaking in the world. But then you came for formal education, and that formal education was not just about knowledge and not just about information or training or skills, but it was a lot about values. It was a lot about you discovering yourself. It was a lot about you understanding what your full potential could be, having the confidence to explore, be curious, learn, make mistakes, figure things out for yourself. That has gone out of education in general around the world. But particularly in India, one of the costs of colonization and subsequent economic growth has been that education has really become about training people for jobs. And there is nothing wrong with that. Obviously, we all need to do well in life. You want to have a meaningful career, be well paid, make money, progress. But what has been ignored or neglected in that very strong emphasis on just career is the holistic development of the individual.
Right. And I think at the Limitless, we're coming up with something called the B Lab. And we have been talking to the parents that, it is so important to build these assets.
Yes.
Then external situations, external surroundings may go up and down. I mean, the world is VUCA, right? It's volatile, it's uncertain, it's complex and ambiguous. But if we have our mindset right, if we have the brain set right, and if we have the right values, which we instilled right from the start, and particularly you spoke about the higher education, right? In this segment, high school education, I see that it's a fundamental, I would say, a time and opportunity. It's a critical window of opportunity for us to sort of make that change. So what would be your advice to the parents who are listening to this? How can they think? Because, it's a very challenging time also, where there's lots of confusion. AI is looming over, the jobs may be taken away every single time. I think you are an ex-McKinsey. So McKinsey report comes in, a World Economic Forum comes in, X number of jobs are going to go away. So how do you look at that, and what should the parents do in this regards, and what should be their approach?
Sure. I think the first thing parents have to realize is that despite all the doomsday scenarios and cuts and disruptions that you're seeing, uh, from a future and career and growth standpoint, the world is going to be a better place for their children. So you have to be optimistic. And I'm not saying this just to build false hope, but you have to believe that the world will be a better place for your kids in terms of opportunities. Then the question becomes, what do you train them for? And what is becoming very clear is that tasks that can be automated will be automated.
True.
And so a lot of what we teach today and prepare our children for will happen through AI. Okay. And so it's now going to become more important to learn how to use these tools than doing a lot of the things that these tools can now do instead of you.
True.
Right. So I do think that parents do have to put in a little bit of effort in guiding their children, because schools and colleges may not be able to keep up
Right.
with the changes that are happening. But as parents go out into the world and interact and work in their own careers, they will see how the world is changing. And so they have to have a bit of a mentoring relationship with their kids to say, look, you'll get this in school, but we need to do more outside of school. There, I would say that my advice to both children today and parents is to focus on three things. First is, there is so much going on that it can become very confusing.
Yes,
and there's a lot of pressure, there's a lot of FOMO.
Yes.
That should I do this or not do that, and what will I miss out?
True.
Despite all of the choices, as human beings, I think we do best when we focus on one thing or emphasize or prioritize one thing. So I think parents should encourage their kids to take one area beyond studies, which they have to do anyway, which they have their own interest or curiosity or passion in, and focus on that. It doesn't have to be for life. It is not about your calling. It's just about saying, look, I like to...
Let's explore this.
Yeah, your child likes animals. Encourage that. If your child likes geography, encourage that. Take them around. Show them places. If they like history, give them books. So I think encourage one interest, and it could be for 6 months only.
Yes.
Or it could be a fad that goes away after 6 months. You pick up another. But get them to understand that there is some anchor that keeps them grounded. And I recently spoke about it and called it the anchor point. So children today need an anchor in the world where there is so much to do. Okay, so that's one thing. And your anchor point can keep changing. Doesn't
Over the
matter.
period of time, yes.
I think the second is a corollary to this, that encourage people, your children, to be curious. Curiosity is, I think, a big part of who we are as human beings and how we are different from other species. And that is what makes us do things, makes us explore and therefore learn.
Yes, true.
Okay?
In the process. You
That's
may
right.
fail, you may succeed, but in that process, you gain the experience.
Correct. So I'm today sitting here because I built these institutions, but it actually came from an inherent curiosity. When somebody said, hey, can you help me build ISB or build this university? It wasn't like I knew how to do it.
Exactly. I was just about to say that you just took it up and said, let's explore.
And it wasn't that I wasn't scared that how can I do this, right? But I was also curious. It was interesting, right? Now, you can't be curious about everything, so you have to pick an anchor point. But I think encouraging curiosity throughout your life helps when an anchor point doesn't work.
Right.
So you start something.
You start another one.
Then you have something else. You always have 5 or 6 balls in the air.
Right.
And you don't have to be juggling them. You can have them in the air, and then when something doesn't work out, you have 4 other things to try out. So I think curiosity is important. I think the last thing that is important, and third thing, is the awareness that you have to constantly keep learning and unlearning. So it again is a corollary to the curiosity point, that yes, you're curious, so you'll try out things, but some things won't work. Learn from that. If this is something not to do, or this is not for me,
Correct.
or I don't like this. So there's learning even from mistakes, from bad steps that you took, from failures, as well as this constant idea that, look, I may think I know, but I could be wrong, or the world has changed. So how has it changed, and what do I need to do differently? Which is a slightly different point from curiosity, which is to say that I need to keep changing and transforming throughout. So your point about education being transformation, all of us are transforming throughout. I will be transformed after this interview, because I may say things here that I didn't know I knew. You'll be transformed, hopefully, by some of the things you learned from me, and our listeners would be. So are you learning something constantly? If you're watching this podcast, are you zoning out, or are you really saying, hey, what is this guy talking about? Is he making sense, and how does it apply to me? So I think this idea of an anchor point, of being curious, of constantly being open to learning, are things that parents can encourage. And that's all you can do, because you can't control what's happening outside.
Very true. And we at the lab keep meeting the parents. And what we see is, yes, opportunities, as you rightly mentioned, are increasing. Distractions are also
Yes.
increasing. There's ton of mobile phones, and then all the things that the kids are exposed to. I think my generation never had that opportunity, and I'm sure your generation did not have that. So the parents are very anxious in today's time, and rightly so. So what is it that, in terms of, they come and ask us, ki bhai, attention is a problem, focus is a problem, getting them to do certain tasks is a big time affair, and then obviously the career kicks in, and then the confusions come in, and it is a challenging time for parents as well. But somewhere, I think, as you rightly mentioned, having certain anchor points and making sure that quality time is given to them, understanding, sitting with them, exploring together, and then learning also together. I mean, I still remember my parents taking me out on completely, chalo, let's go ahead and do this, and let's see, do it together.
Yeah. So you can't stop them from using the mobile phone, which is the way a lot of parents react. But you can encourage one area for them to focus on.
And I think that is so, when I was in North America, that is one thing which I learned there, that it's like I'm driving a car. There's a front which I can look, and then I have a rear mirror. Now, largely Indian ecosystem is ki weakness. Let us, there should not be any weakness. Let us get the weakness sorted, and we don't focus on the strengths. While in North America, what I saw was, if a child is very good in storytelling, let's pick that up. Now we will keep building that storytelling even further and even further, until the child no more likes it. So you don't give it up until the child gives it up. Now here we are driving the car with the front mirror, but we are constantly focusing on the weaknesses.
Yes.
So we are constantly shoulder checking.
Yes.
So I think this is somewhere I strongly feel, even at the lab, we feel that this is the point where parents have to understand that, yes, strengths are more important than filling the weaknesses.
Yeah.
Being open to it, understanding that. What were your learnings as you were building the ISB, in terms of the curriculum, in terms of what is the right way to get the youngsters understand, and even for that matter, Ashoka University, how has been the fundamental value-based system integrated into the curriculums?
Yeah, the two institutions are somewhat different, but maybe there are some commonalities. One is to keep students busy. And maybe this runs counter to some of the things that we were talking about earlier, that there's learning beyond the classroom and so on. But I think if you're going to do the deliberate, systematic, sustainable education, which is what formal education is, then especially in the ISB's case, or even at Ashoka when we started the Young India Fellowship, you have them for 1 year.
Mm-hmm.
And in that 1 year, you want to do as much as possible to prepare them. So one of the things that we said was to keep distractions to a minimum and really have them focused on the curriculum, not just classroom, whatever it is that we are doing outside of the classroom as well, but keep them really engaged. So that 1 year is almost like a boot camp, that you're drinking from a fire hose, as they say in America, right? So I think that was one. Take education seriously, and not be distracted in this 1 year. You have only 1 year, and even in the undergraduate program at Ashoka, you have only 4 years. This is 4 years of a 90-year, 100-year life these days, right? So make the most of it, right? So how do you help them make the most of it?
Beautiful.
Right? It could be that you fill up the day with lots of activities and so on, even outside the classroom. It could also be that you take care of their housekeeping and laundry, so that they are able to have the time to not worry about that, right? Sometimes people would say that we are spoiling them. The idea was not to spoil them. The idea was to make them free,
comfortable and free of all the
that so that they
chores,
could
you
really
know?
focus on the
Right,
education.
right.
I think the second thing was what I already said, is to focus not just on the classroom, but outside the classroom too. So encourage extracurricular activities, encourage leadership efforts that people are making. Sometimes you just have to support them financially, give them resources, encourage them to do that, so that people are able to explore what they are capable of, more than just taking the quiz or maxing the exam and getting a good GPA. The third thing that I have found that makes a huge difference in education, and I think you may be able to identify, is that people learn the best when you have this kind of environment in a formal education setup, when the teachers are inspiring also.
Yes, indeed.
Right? And so one of the things that we've tried to do is treat the classroom as being very sacrosanct, and only allow people who are good teachers and very good teachers and the best teachers into the room. Right? This is not something that anybody and everybody should be doing. And so there's a real dearth of teachers in the world, and I'm sure that in most universities and colleges there are good and bad teachers, and I don't mean to say that anybody is bad. But you know what I mean. You'll remember from your school and college that you don't remember what you studied, but you remember the people.
Yes, 100%.
You know, and so how do you maximize the number of inspirational contacts that students can have? It could be from an academic, it could be from a visiting professor, it could be from a guest faculty, it could be from their peers, which means that you want to make sure that the class is a little bit of the same level.
Wavelength and the
Yes, in terms of
intellectual
that's
and
right.
also the extracurricular
Yes,
capabilities.
so that they can challenge each other and learn from each other.
You know, it is very interesting. I was a medical doctor, and neurology I studied for about 14 years. And then people wondered, why did you go to do an MBA from Cambridge? I said, that 1 year transformed my life, because here is an institution where you can go and sit in any classroom.
That's right.
You pick up engineering, you're fine going to the business. Although you're doing business study, you can go to a chemical engineering classroom. You can just talk to anybody. So I think this is where the learning is happening. It is not happening within the boundaries and classroom and the walls, where it can just happen just chit-chatting with your professor, you know. So I think these are fundamentally beautiful points that you mentioned, that giving that environment, that flexibility, that psychological safety, making them understand that, look, this is where, you know, the magic is happening, the chemistry is happening, and translating into life experiences. I still remember that the guys from, you know, big companies, when Apple would come and talk, what are their challenges, and then, you know, we learn from each other's experiences. And thank you for giving us such beautiful institutions and the brain behind those institutions, because I strongly feel that humanity can only thrive and succeed once we have these brains which are set right, you know, and that's why we call them limitless brains, because finally this is the future, right? The brain bank is getting translated into the future that we are creating.
I think that idea of a limitless brain is also one that I've talked about a lot in a different way, where ultimately, if you think about people's potential, it is limitless.
Indeed.
And if you look at what I have done in my life, and I'm sure that this is not about me, I'm using myself as an example for all human beings. Who would have imagined that I would be building a university? When I was 6 years old or 10 years old, when people would ask me, I would say, I want to be a bus driver, right? And I never became a bus driver. But on the other hand, I became a person who's known for setting up educational institutions. So my point is really that you could do anything literally. Now, I may not become a world-class cricketer or an F1 driver, but the truth is that I can do many more things than I think I can.
True.
And if people just could believe that, they would have a much more positive view of the future.
Very true.
If parents could believe that about their own children, the pressure of parenting to get them into a particular school, a particular career, a particular job, a particular stream would go away, because truly what your child will do ultimately, you really don't know.
Very true. In fact, most of the times parents often feel ki bhai wo what they could not do.
That's right.
They want to give
Yes,
that, optimize
yes.
it, but rather it is being open. It is being, as you said, curious, both from the side of the child as well as from the side of the parent, and then keeping on exploring, learning and unlearning. And in fact, the data, as we keep on reading about, obviously the parenting and the education and, the movements. So the entire world has become anyways a common, driver. There's nothing post. I think
Yeah.
all the virtual, we can
Yeah.
just connect with each other, etc. and all. So I think building that cultural mindset is also an important thing, right? What is your take on the openness from the cultural point of view?
Do you mean culture in terms of openness to different ideas? And
Yeah, so I'll give you my example.
Yeah.
For me, I mean, obviously, when I did my basic education from India, to go ahead and take a cup of coffee in a classroom was completely like a big thing, right? But when I go to a classroom in America, I'm like, everybody is, chilling around and the cup of
Yeah,
coffee and
yeah.
all. And for me, that was like a big shock. So I think somewhere we keep talking to the parents that, look, let them be exposed to these cultural nuances as well.
Yeah.
Because today it's not, I may be here sitting in India, but tomorrow I may go ahead and take up a project in Canada. I may go ahead in Colombia. So I think what do you think about the educational institutions preparing them for that?
Sure. I think that aspect of it is a little bit tricky, because you don't want to go to either extreme. And today the world has become very polarized. So there's people who are just extremely woke, and woke to a fault. Woke is not a word that we even knew. I didn't know.
True, same for me.
Till a few years ago.
Yes, agreed.
But today, people are using it like a household word. And then there is the extremely sort of conservative view where things have gone regressively in the past in a way from what we had actually evolved. So I do think that striking the right balance is important. I do think that many of the values and cultural beliefs that we have in a place like India, we need to value a lot more. We do have a 5,000-year-old culture. This whole thing about holistic education or practice-based learning, project-based learning, this was very much the ethos. Interdisciplinarity, multidisciplinarity, critical thinking, all of these are very, very deeply rooted in our culture. However, we don't realize that. So we try to adopt these from other places where they have become a little bit warped or they've gone too far, and there are no boundaries. I think some limits are required. Even though
it's a balance, as you
that's
rightly
right.
mentioned.
So I think the combining the best of two cultures or two sets of values is really the skill that we should be, the capability that we should be building in our children.
Very true.
To understand what is the best to take from both aspects of your upbringing or your learning. Right.
In fact, we do a lot of experiments from the bridging science and spirituality perspective. And we were talking that, it is also a little bit about neuro-spiritual parenting, some form of spiritual values. We're not talking religion,
Yeah.
but basic things which will actually optimize their performance.
Sure.
And I think we, from the point of view of capabilities, there is a myth that we use only 5% of the brain and 10%. And then we say, no, it's not about the brain. It is about the potential, which is only 5% explored.
Yes.
Where, as you rightly mentioned, that there's so much which you have to continuously explore and then go ahead and keep doing. But from the spiritual standpoint of integration of simple practices, for example, just looking at the sun and offering a salutation is an important thing, which is affecting your circadian rhythm. A circadian clock is entirely changed just by a simple practice. What is your take on very, very simple routine practices?
I really believe in them. In fact, it's funny you should mention that, because I conduct a class every year for this course that is offered at the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania. They offer a course on India, which their MBA students, their executive MBA students, their undergraduate business students, are allowed to take, and they bring them to India for 2-3 weeks. And I do the introductory lecture. And my big point in that lecture is that we are a 5,000-year-old civilization and a 75-year
Independent, yes.
political
Political.
entity, and a 35-year-old economy, if you think about liberalization.
Yes.
And the way I illustrate that is that I remember this from one of my morning walks, that there was this woman who was walking ahead of me. She was wearing a simple salwar kameez, but she had a backpack. Okay, a very westernized concept. The backpack is a symbol of that. She was wearing tennis shoes. The sport shoes must be one of these, not very fancy, but looked like a typical Nike, Adidas type of sports shoes. So the combination of a very traditional Indian attire with the backpack is very much a recent phenomenon. But then suddenly she stopped and she turned around and she looked at the sun and did this. And that's really who we are. She was not afraid that she was in the middle of the road. Lots of people were watching her. Not lots, it was early in the morning. But she was not embarrassed.
Very true.
To do that. And I do think that it actually is a little bit like, everybody's talking about mindfulness and meditation or whatever. I think for her, that routine, which sets her day and probably makes her feel good, she may be emulating her grandparents or something she saw or believed in. Make sure that she starts her day off right? And she's not afraid to do that. I think that's what we want to inculcate.
True.
I'll just give you another example. Very early on in Ashoka, we had a guest lecture by a very famous historian called Sheldon Pollock. Sheldon Pollock is very well known and was at Columbia. And when he did his PhD thesis, he actually came and lived, I think, in Chennai, learned the language, did a lot of research in the archives in the local, in the city. So in the Q&A section, one of our students got up and asked that, you're American. You could have done so many things living in America. You had access to so much. Why would you up and come all the way to India? And that too, 50 years ago, to do research on something as obscure as some system in Tamil Nadu, right? And he thought about it and he said, look, where else could I have done this? And he was not being cute. He genuinely meant it. He said, you guys have a 5,000-year-old civilization and it's still living. I can actually come here and feel that this has been going on for 5,000 years. How many countries still have a living 5,000-year-old civilization? For me, as an academic and a researcher and a scholar,
it's a wow.
This is like a gold mine.
Yeah, true.
Right?
True.
In fact, you should be asking, why do you need to do anything else when you have so much going on? If you are interested in the past and in history. So I think what has happened is that in our quest for greatness as a nation, post-independence, as well as our quest for economic growth and power, we take this for granted. I go for a morning walk every day where I have the whole place to myself, to the Humayun's tomb, which was built 500 years ago.
Wow.
Now, we take Humayun's tomb for granted. We take these artifacts here. It's just a building. But you go there and you realize that, look, there are people still living in this area and the Hazrat Nizamuddin Aulia's tomb is here. There are some 200 tombs here of prominent people who chose to be here because they thought this was a pious place, because the Nizamuddin Aulia tomb is here. And Humayun's tomb was built here. It predates the Taj Mahal.
Wow.
The architecture of the Taj Mahal is rooted in this building. It's the largest tomb, I believe, in the whole Islamic world. And I get to access it every day. And all to myself. At 6 a.m., there's nobody there.
No soul around.
And I go there and every day, I cannot conceptualize 500 years. in my brain, right? What must be happening 500 years ago? So I think I'm not trying to over dramatize it, but to make the point that I think we have to understand that there's a lot of wisdom that is all here, and we should value that.
And we should not let it lose,
That's right.
and bringing, when we bring simple chants, when we bring in simple
Absolutely.
breathing practices, you connect a brain, and then you see, wow, it's like a change which is just unfathomable.
The challenge of modernism and everything that is there, and I'm not a big expert on this, is that we reject everything in the past as it is not
Yeah.
relevant, or it's not scientific, or it's not modern enough. That new is necessarily better.
Very true.
And while that is true in many cases, there is, of course, natural advancement, but there are certain things that are, timeless and evergreen, and we need to be able to recognize that.
Now, I know you have a very busy schedule and you do a lot of tasks and juggling between, I think, the business part of it and the educational institutions, and then the philanthropic and the charity work that you do. How do you design your day to become limitless? What are the things that you inculcate in your everyday practice which makes your brain, there's this, because people I see, and a lot of times doing a lot of tasks and then complaining there's no time. And then, in my entire Limitless series, I keep meeting people like you, and I am blessed because this is the way in which I can transform my lifestyle. And what we have learned is very simple things make a big change. Like, just 5 minutes spending with meditation. And then they say, oh, we are clear and everything is super good just by 5 minutes of meditation. So what are those secret practices which makes you limitless?
I think one of the things that I'm endowed with, which people feel surprised when I say, is that I'm inherently a lazy person. And that helps me, because while I might be doing 100 things and I'm very busy, I have a natural tendency to not be busy. So what happens is that I steal lots of time for myself. And that gives me the quiet and the silence to survive the busyness and not let it get to me. I don't feel frantic out.
I think you are making me think that you're not busy, but you're just easy.
That's a nice way to put it. I'll borrow that. So what happens is that, like, even today, I've had a very busy day. I started my day at 6:15 a.m. But the truth is that from 6:15 to 8 a.m., I really had time to myself. I was exercising, my walk, my physiotherapy, and just allowing my mind to think and relax, right? I will take time off in the evening. I will not work late. I don't work on flights. I get therapy from reading and watching. So I indulge in that. Many times I know that I have to do something, but I'm past that time when if I don't do this now, something big is going to happen. Of course, if there are things that are really urgent, I do take care of them. But I don't get hassled when something can't be done right away. Because I also believe, along with the laziness, look, the world will go on. You are not so important. And as you see people die or go away, you realize that the world goes on. Nobody is that important. So don't let yourself feel so important either. Don't neglect things. But at the same time, allow yourself to realize that the world will go on without you, and nothing is so dire that you have to take care of it right now.
Beautiful. I think the quest for people is towards human doing, and you're just saying, let's be human beings.
That's right.
From
That's
doing
right.
to being, and then, yes, understanding, as you rightly mentioned, your capabilities, but allowing yourself also the time to reflect, to introspect, to just let loose the mind. There is no focal point of this, etc. Now, my next question, and possibly a few more minutes with that. I don't want to leave, but it's so interesting. Thank you for, first of all, accepting this. Now, I could see that you were very chilled and relaxed even when our EEG signals were not coming, right? So it was very clear that, yes, you take life as it comes by. Now, a lot of parents and a lot of educational mindset has been all about competition. And one thing which I learned again, back in Cambridge, was that education is also about collaboration. And somewhere, I think in this competition collaboration, that is where, we have to still further make the shifts and changes. That is my perspective. But what is your take on it?
Yeah, I do think that we've become very competition focused. And I think because there's a general sense that there are very few opportunities in the world and many more people vying for it. So whether it is kindergarten admission, whether it is piano classes, whether it is, getting into college, at each stage, there's a real rush. And the sense is that there are very few spots and too many people trying for it. So that just naturally, and you can't help it, will induce competition. I do think it goes back to what I was saying earlier, that at least for hardworking, enterprising individuals, the opportunities in today's age are actually limitless. And if you look at it from that perspective, then you only have to beat yourself.
Beautifully
You
said.
only have to compete with yourself.
Beautifully said.
And it's almost liberating when you realize that. To think that, look, it doesn't matter what Shweta is doing. I don't care what you're doing, actually. I mean, I don't mean it that way, but you almost have to say, look, mind your own business.
True.
Look after yourself. Look at what you cannot do. What are you curious about? What's your anchor point? Are you learning or not? And the rest will follow. And this is not a fatalistic mindset, because I'm still saying you have to do these things. You have to work hard. You work hard, you'll be rewarded. But you have to work hard. It's not relative to what you are doing.
True. It's like we call it BYOB, build your own brain.
That's it.
Apna karo.
Bilkul.
Yes.
So I do think that, and then naturally collaboration will happen.
True.
Because in a way you are being a little bit selfish in a good way. And so if to get something done for myself, I need your help, then I will genuinely ask you for help. And it will be truly collaborative, because I know that you are doing me a favor by helping me achieve my goals, right? But if I'm doing it because, you're a good person to be connected to, or I can get something out of you, or I want to somehow pull you down by being collaborative.
So I think it's the authenticity
That's it.
which matters. And then that mindset again, it all boils down to, I think, repeatedly the mindset that we operate from, And that makes a neurologist happy from the education.
Yes. Yes.
I was just last week, with a student of ours, because we do something called the Decode My Brain. So where we understand what are their brain potentials and then how do we take the children forwards. And this guy, a young chap, very, very bright, and he took up a course in Stanford, combination of mathematics, philosophy and politics. For a while, I was like, wow, what kind of a combination is that? And how do you even fathom, that how does the three combine? But I think this is where the life and this is where the education systems and the choices and everything is evolving.
Sure.
And so what is your take on, merging these kind of specialties and then, building something which out of traditional norms? It won't be a typical degree, because coming 10, 20, 30 years, there's going to be a massive change in the educational system as well. I mean, in our book also, we wrote about it. But I'm personally very curious. If I go back, I definitely won't choose to become a doctor. I will pick up some weird combination like that,
I think, again, it has to be a mix of things. And it's, it's each to his own, her own, is what I would say. For example, if you ask me, like you were saying, and the example you were giving, if college should be about designing your own education.
A la carte, like you pick it up,
Yeah.
what you like.
Yeah, and it's a buffet.
Oh, sorry, buffet.
Or even a la carte. I mean, there's a menu. You decide what you want to eat. You don't have to eat everything, nor do you have to eat my fixed menu. Or you can choose my fixed menu if you want. However, there have to be some guidelines and some rules that you have to study this and this and this and this. I think, for example, in today's day and age, math and some quantitative skills are important.
True.
Okay. So I will say, look, you have to eat some protein. You can choose paneer or chicken, but please eat protein. That's required, right? So, or you need to drink so much water, right? We say. So I think it's important to have some guidelines, because otherwise it's also true that people at 17 don't really know
Yeah.
what to do.
Yes, their prefrontal cortex is not as built,
You
so
know that, yeah,
choices are a
absolutely.
problem.
Absolutely. And so it's okay to give them choice. It's okay to let them do things that they discover they don't like or like, maybe prematurely like. That's also okay. But I do think that you need to give them some guidance. And I think if you do a combination of a guided search, that is really the whole point of a good education system. In a Gurukul, the guru didn't spoon feed them, but gave them direction.
That path, like a little pot, you just keep a little hand inside and outside and you're just shaping it
Yeah,
basically,
yeah.
but allowing it to get.
And that is the notion of the master. I mean, the master was not brainwashing you. The master was truly a master in that sense, that they were wise, they knew a lot, and they would give you answers and nudge you when you had to make those choices. Unfortunately, with the massification of education, which is still a Gurukul system at the end of it, because there's a classroom, there's a teacher, but now that teacher doesn't have a chance to give you that mentoring, that wisdom.
Plus, I think it is more transactional, right? I have to do my duty, I have to complete my portion, and I have to
That's it.
give this. So I think that is where, and even the same thing with the healthcare system, right? The moment it has become transactional, that way, then, how the entire thing of healing was happening
Absolutely.
has translated, So I joke and I say, look, I'm a healer, I'm not a dealer. So because that is how, you
Yeah,
also continue to evolve
absolutely.
into the ecosystem. Now, what we see is also the fear, there is a lot of fear of failing, there is a lot of fear of non-conformity, fear of getting forwards in life, and that is all how the brain is built, right? The brain is searching and scanning for the threats, etc. and all. So it is, what is your take on building these psychological safety, building around a neuro-friendly ecosystem where the parents are understanding basics of how the child's brain is operating, and educationist is understanding, and sometimes I have been very fortunate to work with Chinmay Mission, and they had 50 schools, and so I would go around a lot of schools. I was assisting one of the spiritual teachers, and every time I would go to a school and I would see that there is a lot of fear which was in the teachers, and the teachers would say that we are stressed. Why? Because the principal tells us what to do, parents come and tell us what to do, children also tell us what we are supposed to do, and there is no freedom of sort of expression, etc. and all. So how do you envision, or what would people take home in relation to countering this fear?
Yeah, I think there's multiple questions in that, and maybe I'll try to answer them. I think the point about understanding neuroscience and neuroscience informed education is a very important one. I think in neuroscience, an understanding of that clearly tells us that one size fits all doesn't work. Yet our education model is built for that. So, how do you bridge that gap? And that's what I was saying earlier when I said, look, parents have to play a role. We have no choice now, because the more formal education has become one size fits for all, willy-nilly over time. I think neuroscience also talks about the different stages of the evolution of the brain,
Yes.
right? If people only knew that even through 17, 18, 19, 20, your prefrontal cortex is still evolving,
yes.
right? You don't have the ability to take decisions and make choices. But also it goes back to a larger point about staging education in a way, in a certain way, like this big focus now in India on FLN, the Nipun Bharat program, which is around foundational learning and numeracy, that if you don't teach people language and numeracy below, I think, grade 5, then their whole learning for the rest of their life is affected, because that ability to comprehend and understand complex ideas that have to come later is greatly limited if you haven't delivered on that in the early stages. So again, these are all informed by science and neuroscience, and understanding of how the brain develops and what the brain is able to hold. I think neuroscience also talks about the fact that you learn from experience, not just by being taught, but by experiencing things. So which is how project-based learning, social emotional learning, and all these things have come in. So I do think that there's a lot of merit to combining neuroscience and education. We aren't doing enough of that. The answers are all there. I think we have to scale it and spread it across the system. Going back to your second question, which you ended up, and I don't know if you were asking this, but I will answer it with my own answer, because I haven't ever forgotten this. Obviously, as an educator, you have a lot of choices to make. Parents are demanding something, children are demanding something, curriculum demands something, the regulator, education is highly regulated, is demanding something. And of course, you try your best to manage that. But one of my teachers who I really look up to and has been a role model for me, uh, taught me something which I have never forgotten. In the course of building Ashoka, I talked to her and said, look, when we went to school, there was something special about that school because a lot of the kids who came out of that school have done well. And what do you think was unique about that school? What was there a magic sauce? Was there a silver bullet? And she said something which was very interesting. She said that our principal had taught her in a moment of, when she was feeling low and was feeling overwhelmed. Look, forget everything else. Just focus on your students and make sure that your students are happy, is what he told her. Now, obviously, this is not the fun happy, the pleasure happy that you let your students run wild, right?
It is the contentment happy.
That's right. It's the fulfillment and contentment happy. Now, that's where I think it becomes a little bit about you as an educator. I can't tell you how to make you.
True.
Can make
it is inside.
You'll have to bring something of yourself to that classroom to balance all of these things which you're doing anyway. You're teaching Macbeth and you're teaching algebra. But in this happiness quotient, how do you take what you have and convert it into something new and different? And the way you do it will be very different from the way I do it, right? So I think if all our teachers, if all our education system understood that making students content with the learning and fulfilled with the experience they're having is really what this is about. And if you can do that by bringing in the curriculum, bringing in the demands of the parents, bringing in the demands of the principal, catering to, that's great. But if you can't balance it all, at least just make sure that they are engaged and fulfilled.
I think you said a very important point. That will just diffuse the stress. I mean, there won't be any stress because there is that inner happiness and inner joy, which is a compass, which is a guide. And yes, within the boundaries of whatever the demands are, you're still delivering. And
and your style is different from mine. So you're liberated. You don't have to follow a set style.
And somewhere I feel, and I want your opinion on it, that not what to think is important. That is what we keep enforcing. But how are you thinking? How are you making the child learn that how part of it is something which is...
If we are going to have to live in a world of AI, the how is going to become very important.
Yes, very true. Because what is all there?
Yes. And the founder of Perplexity was this Indian, Arvind, forget his last name. In one of his TED Talks, he says that now in AI, the answers are all there.
But how to ask the question?
Yes. What is the question you'll ask? Because the answers, you don't have to come up with the answer. The answers are all there. So what is the question you're asking? Tell me the question you're asking. If you tell me the question properly and well, then I'll get you the right answer. And I think that's a very interesting problem that the world is getting into. That the more we teach people how to find answers, the pushback will be that, look, you don't have to do that.
True. And I think somewhere, parents and educators will have to live with AI. So it is going to be preparing the kids, as you rightly mentioned in the beginning, that how to use it and how to make it, friendly in your personally, if you ask me, a lot of questions come to us as doctors also. Are you threatened by AI system? And I said, no. Sometimes the patients are putting everything coming, and so we say we are second opinion after AI.
Yes.
We are HI over AI, and which is still okay, and we have to respect that technology will become a part of it.
No, and then you'll be much more thoughtful about your treatment and your diagnosis, right? Because you'll say, okay, what is this thing saying?
Yeah, you will integrate that as well, with an open mindset, with an open Amazing. So I'm going to ask you a couple of rapid fire questions.
Okay, this is Karan Johar.
Oh, yes, one of the rapid fire is going to be, if you didn't go to IIT and if you didn't study what you studied, what would you have studied, and which university in the current time would you have chosen to go to?
No, in the current time, I would have gone to an Ashoka. And it's not because I'm associated with Ashoka, but because I think the broad education that
would have attracted.
Try to do in an Ashoka, which is back to the point about designing your own education, is the most possible in India today, I believe, in a place like an Ashoka University.
I think it is like that designer dress, right? It is a designer education. You are designing things based on what is going on outside in the world and what is inside within the assets.
Yes.
So it's a beautiful thing. And if you were not intending to be a bus driver and an educationist, what would you have chosen to do?
I think I would like to have been somebody who was a writer, historian, researcher.
And what you would have written about?
I think I would have written fiction, but I would have written fiction that is rooted in history.
If your life was named a book, what would be the name of that book?
Random.
Ah, I like that. And why would that be? Beautiful, by the way. Why would that be?
Because it's been very random at some level. And I think that's how lives are. I think we try to make too much by looking back to your rear view mirror point and say, oh, my life is like this or like that. I mean, there is no pattern to my life, if you ask me. It's been all over the place. And I think most lives are like that. How can you even predict? Some very sad things have happened recently. I keep thinking about this woman who was shot in the lobby of, she had a fantastic education, family, children, walks into the lobby to go home to her children and is shot by a guy who's angry with the NFL for having a brain. It is so random. So I really do believe that, sorry to bring up a sad incident.
Yeah, no, but that's so relevant to the randomness of the way we live, right? When we go to bed also, there's no surety that the morning would we ever be able to...
But not to
be
make this morbid and end it on a positive note, that is also the randomness that leads to positive outcomes.
Yes, indeed.
Today, you and I have met for the first time.
True.
You did a brain scan. I don't know what you're going to tell me, but maybe you'll tell me something that will change my life. Or we might end up collaborating and doing something that we never thought was possible.
True. So life is all about those hidden possibilities. It's about the mindset. It's about the openness, I think, which you mentioned.
Yes.
It's about the curiosity. It's about being authentic self that you take on to. Beautiful. And what is the favorite drink? Which is your favorite?
I love the filter coffee from South India.
Jo pura aisa, the way it is made itself is...
Yeah, so I'm always looking for different types of South Indian filter coffee, sources, brands.
Now I know what to gift you next. That makes my life easy. And the very, very, very last question. Can you tell our audience 3 important things as educators, as parents, because we are here to build limitless generations? What would be the 3 pivotal points which they have to take home from the entire podcast? If they've not heard the entire podcast, these are the 3 things which they have to reflect upon going back, and you can talk to our audience.
I think I'd again go back to what I've already said, and I'm sure people have picked it up, but I really believe that the points about, in today's world, it's particularly relevant to have a bit of an anchor for everyone, not just kids, but even as adults. I do a lot of things, but at any point in time, I'm excited, passionate, and prioritizing one thing. And I think that idea of an anchor point is an important one to take away, both for yourself, but also to inculcate and encourage in your children. I think the point about the 2 other points that I would make, since you want 3, is again, I'll cheat and pick up the 2 other points I made alongside the anchor point, that curiosity, genuinely encouraging, nurturing, and building curiosity constantly is important. Everything teaches you something, and therefore then from there, having an open mind about learning. And I think that point is really about being a little bit humble about what you know. Being about saying, I actually, even though I think I know, I may be wrong. Which is a corollary to curiosity, but it's about saying, look, I cannot assume that I know everything, and I certainly, whatever I know can still may not be right in today's day and age. Things have changed. I think those would be my 3 points: the anchor point, the curiosity, and the continuous openness to learning.
Learning. Beautiful. So, as you know, now you also agree that it is an education alchemy, and it is thanks to such limitless brains that we are having beautiful institutions such as Ashoka or ISB and many more with his amazing, not being busy, but an easy brain that he has.
I like that.
I am going to definitely share what his brain is all about also, but I am very sure that it is all about the amazing prefrontal cortex that leads to it. All the limitless performers definitely have done something special. And as you can see, what he has done is he has thought a lot about the education. He has really put all his powers into it of making, not just having something just for the sake of building it, but with a vision, with a deeper understanding of what goes behind the education. What are those value systems you and me exactly need to learn? And we are very, very blessed and fortunate to have such people in India, Bharat, and all helping the generations to become limitless and to achieve and definitely make India shine. And not just India, I think even as global community, as people, it is all about happiness and success, and as he rightly mentioned, the contentment within and inside. So thank you so much for being with us on this podcast. If you do have any comments and if you want to reach out to us, please do so. We are very, very thankful for your like, share, and subscribe. Signing off, Dr. Sweta Adatia from Limitless Brain Lab.